Hey, what's up guys, it's Mark here, and I'm going to show you how to do a coolant change with the Mazda MX-5 ND. So that's 2016 and up. So first of all, as you can see, jack the car up, and this is some of the list of tools you'll probably need for this project. Step 2, remove the two front fender liners on the corner of the car, located here and here. To remove the bolts and rivets, you have to take the Phillips screwdriver out and also take the small flathead screwdriver to remove those plastic rivets. The rivets and bolts you want to remove are on the edges of the fender liners. There are some bolts and rivets in the middle of the fender liner that you do not have to remove. So the fender liners also goes inside the wheel well, and you might have to turn your wheels to the side to have a better angle to access those rivets and bolts. If you have trouble accessing some of the rivets and bolts, just turn the wheels the other way around and you have a much better chance of accessing them. Now I've removed all the bolts and rivets in the inside wheel well, so I'm going back under the vehicle. There's a few more bolts that's holding it to place, so I'm just gonna unscrew that, and off comes the fender liner. With the fender liners removed, put all your bolts and rivets onto the fender liner, so that way reinstallation is going to be easier to find all the proper rivets together and put it in the proper section. Removing the other fender liners is exactly the same process as what you just did, so go ahead and remove the same pieces and put all the screws together. Now that you remove the fender liners, the next step is to remove the splash shield, and the tool you're going to need is the 10mm socket to remove all the bolts surrounding the edges of the splash shield. And there's also two plastic rivets at the back of the splash shield and also two Phillips screws at the front of the splash shield. With the splash shield removed, this is where you find the radiator drain plug. It is located on the bottom right corner of the radiator as indicated here. And all you have to do to loosen it up is to turn it counterclockwise, and that way it will start draining coolant. Before you start draining a coolant, make sure you put your drain pan underneath the drain plug and loosen up the drain plug by turning it counterclockwise. You do not have to completely unscrew the drain plug. You can just loosen it up until coolant starts flowing out from the radiator. What will help drain your radiator faster is to open your coolant fill cap indicated here and just loosen it up until some air is able to get by the cap, and that will help increase the flow of your drain. Step 6. Drain and refill the coolant overflow reservoir. To do that, just unclip the overflow hose on the side of the tank and open up the cap, and you can just leave it laying on the side of the engine bay. To remove the overflow tank itself and drain all the fluids and contents in there, there's 2 clips on the side of the tank, and all you have to do is pull out the clip a little bit, and that way unhooks it and you can just remove the tank out. And once you got the tank out, pour away the fluid and reinstall the tank back. Reinstalling the tank is pretty easy. Just push down your tank onto the clips and just make sure it is secure. So give it a good push down and then pull it up to make sure it clips into place, and just reinstall your hoses into its proper place. Now go ahead and refill the tank to the full mark. So there's a couple of lines on the side of the tank you should be able to see. One is the low line, one's the high line. So just refill the overflow tank to the high line. So while you're dealing with the overflow tank, the engine radiator should be almost done draining itself, and once it's you're satisfied, just close it back up by turning the plug clockwise. Step 8. Fill engine coolant. Remove the radiator cap and just fill the engine coolant with the appropriate engine coolant that is compatible with the Mazda. And once it's full as indicated here, where you can't fill up anymore, you may want to squeeze the coolant hose pipe on the side. That way it releases some of the air bubbles and you might be able to fill a little bit more. Or if you don't want to, you can just close the cap like what I'm doing. And make sure it's completely tight. Alright, step 9, just make sure your drain plug and the coolant cap is all closed up, and also just make sure all the hoses are plugged in properly on the overflow reservoir. Alright, step 10, warm up your engine till the coolant reaches the operating temperature, which is approximately 100 degrees Celsius. And while the engine is warming up, just make sure you turn off your fan, your cabin fan, and just all the HVAC system. Once your engine is completely warmed up to its operating temperature, turn on the heater, the cabin heater, all the way, and also put it on the defroster, so that way the coolant can flush out any air bubbles in the heater core. Also, just make sure you run it for a good maybe 5 minutes, so if there's any air in the systems, it will be pushed up all the way, and later when the engine cools off, you can refill the engine with more coolant. So after 5 minutes of running your heater, just turn off your engine and reinstall your splash shield and your fender liners while the engine cools off. Alright, now that you install your splasher and your fender liners and your engine had the time to cool off, just make sure you open up the coolant cap if it's safe to do so and refill it with engine coolant till it tops up all the way again. And after that, next few days, just monitor your coolant overflow tank levels. They might change a little bit. Just make sure it's between the minimum and the maximum line. Alright, there you go folks. Thank you very much for watching. Hopefully this has been very educational for you. And if you like this video, feel free to leave a thumbs up, and hopefully that helps you out. Any questions, just leave it in the comments below and I'll do my best to answer it to you. Thank you.